put the cigarette out.
Mm-hmm. That too.
You can hear it. You can hear it.
That too. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today on a Wednesday, what's up with that, is Amanda Suffecool. Of course, I on the Target Radio and the Friday night show Women for Gun Rights. Amanda, thanks for joining us today.
I'm typically here on a Wednesday. It's just not this Wednesday.
Not this Wednesday, right. You're usually, you're last Wednesday,
I was last
and
Wednesday
next
and
Wednesday.
next Wednesday.
Yes.
So I'll be 3 Wednesdays in a row. Lucky, or not lucky you, whatever that is.
There you go.
So what's up with me? Well, as you guys know, I am slightly involved in politics, and to the extent that I am the county chairman of the Republican Party in Portage County, Ohio, and so I'm proud to report that I went to all the polls, or as many of them as I could yesterday, and I moved signs and did things and shook people's hands and handed out slate cards, and then went to the Board of Elections where I'm on the board. And so I watched the process happen, watched all of the votes come in, all the little flash drives go and get sorted, and got to see all of the different process steps that take place to ensure a free and fair election. And I have to say that Ohio leads the way there. They benchmark our Secretary of State and take him to other states to say, this is how you do it. So I'm very proud of that. And our candidates, the candidates in our county and the candidates, Ohio pretty much swept the sweep, except, there were some congressional seats we did not win, but everything from Secretary of State, Governor, Attorney General, all of those, and all of the Supreme Court justices were all of the R persuasion.
Very cool. Very cool. I was watching, and we talked about this a little bit on our, as we were getting ready to go on the air. Mm-hmm. I was watching Fox News early this morning as I was eating my breakfast. And I should mention as we get going, if you want to comment and get your comment on the air, comment on either live Facebook or live YouTube video if you're watching on Polite Society podcast feeds, and we'll get your comment and get it up on the air. If you're catching us anywhere else, go to Twitter. It's safe now, and tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. And we'll get your comments. We'll get them up on the air. But I was eating breakfast this morning, Amanda, and I was watching Fox News because they're the one news network I can watch and not want to shoot the TV. But I was watching, and they were commenting how Ohio is becoming a reliably red state where it used to be very much a swing state. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder how many Amandas they have in Ohio, because you're the northeast corner of Ohio, and a lot of the credit or blame for that part of Ohio going red can be put at your feet.
Can rest in our area. There is no doubt about it. I mean, we've had some tough races that we brought in, and Ohio struggled this year, as did many other states, with the whole redistricting and the COVID. It's all COVID. The COVID lockdown of the census that impacted the data, that impacted the redistricting, that is forced to happen on a 10-year cycle. And so all of that happened, and so there were so many states that were kind of in a sticky wicket. And then Ohio got sued 3 different times, and they threw the maps out. And so, I mean, we were at the 11th hour we actually had candidates running for office when they redistricted and said, nope, sorry, you don't even live in that district now. We had candidates that had to sell their house and buy another house to live in the district in which they were running. So they were given a time limit to do that to after they've proven that they've won the election. But there is that. And we've also moved districts on people who were currently already in office, and they were allowed to continue to be in office and represent people that they didn't live in the district because of how weird this
Yeah,
redistricting has been.
and let's be honest about this. We're talking about state House and state Senate seats, and these are not exactly high-paying jobs.
No.
At least here in South Dakota, you're paid a couple $1,000s for the whole year.
No, in Ohio it is actually a livable wage. So it's not just kind of a it's
So
not pin
it's a
money.
full-time job there.
It is considered a full-time job. It's a livable wage. It's not necessarily a livable wage to pick up and buy another house someplace else without squeezing the family hard. But it is a livable wage. But it's just crazy how this all kind of comes out. And it's like, why are we talking about this on a gun show? But it really impacts, because you could have a pro-gun guy in a place, and all of a sudden now he's not there. He's redistrict. He's in another area. In some cases, we had 2 or 3 incumbents that were then put into the same district, and so all 3 incumbents were racing against each other for the seat. Right? It's crazy.
Yeah. Also want to give a shout out to a good friend of both of ours, Rebecca Schmoy in Kansas, 58th district, I want to say, of Kansas. That she won last night. She's a part of the DC project, solidly, of course, pro-gun person, and congratulations to her. My governor, Kristi Noem, solidly won re-election yesterday. The first time she won the governorship 4 years ago, she won by, I want to say, 6 points. She won by 60, I want to say it was 63 to 31 or something yesterday. So double the votes of the
So
next,
a 2-to-1 ratio. Yeah. Well, it's going to be really sad when we take her to run for president.
Them are fighting words. Those are fighting words. We need her here. Yeah.
Just saying.
So, and as there were bright spots yesterday in the elections. Florida, I consider a bright spot. Florida, along with Ohio, is looking more solidly red. One thing I picked up off of watching returns last night, Charlie Crist has now lost elections as a Republican, as an independent, and as a Democrat now. He's got the trifecta. He's lost it all 3 ways.
Right. And then like Beto, he's like 3 strikes, you're out, I hope. Something like that.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you gotta hope, and you never say never, but you gotta hope this is Beto's last go round. How many times in pro-gun Texas can you run on, yes, I'm taking away your guns, and get kicked to the curb? Eventually, it's
you gotta say Bueller.
Yes.
Bueller, do you get it? Yeah.
Get a
crazy.
comment in
a little
here
bit of crazy.
George over who lives unfortunately in California. George says, Ohio is bright, glowing red, awesome. California is blue, tending to terminal dysfunction.
Oh, that's so sad, George. It really is. And it's like just about the time you think that there's some hope, then it just turns into something. But here's what I'm going to say is right now, if you look at the House map for California, the middle of California is red for the House. And so there is a blue perimeter as it touches the ocean, but it's not all. And a couple races haven't been called, so they're pretty darn close. But they look like they're leaning to the red side. So we're waiting to see. There's so many races that we're waiting to see. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
I want to see what's happening in Oregon. I want to see what's happening in California. And darn it, Arizona, get off the duff.
Oh,
so.
And they had these big reforms come that earlier in the year. They had these law changes. We're going to be changing the way we do elections. We're going to make sure it's free, fair, and unassailable.
Right.
It's just we won't get results for 8 months.
No, it's, the thing that you have to, once you sit through, and I can't say that every state works like this, but it sort of looks like it. Once you sit through one, you sort of get an idea what takes so darn long. And so if they've picked the wrong machines, or the machines have a hard time scanning, so it really is, it's you put your ballot in, it's scanned, that data then goes into a drive, and then the drives are all hand carried, and they're then put into a computer where everything is done as a summary. Then that is put on another drive that is hand carried to a computer that is connected to the internet, so that once the reports are made, so the data is published, then the drive is inserted and sent to the Secretary of State.
And you just have to hope the courier doesn't stop at Waffle House for dinner or something between.
That's the interesting thing is that they're each supposed to travel with, the couriers travel with a Republican and a Democrat together in a car, with the hopes that they're, that one is watching the other is watching the one. Our Secretary of State calls it, kind of like Noah's Ark, 2 by 2, everywhere they go, everything they do.
Sure.
So, you see areas that if the county has a lot of population and a lot of polling places, it takes a long time to amass all that data. But I don't see it. I mean, we were done in our county by 10, we closed at 7:30, and we were done by 11 o'clock of doing all of that. Cleveland has 4 times as many polling places, as many sticks, as many things, and and they're done. So how many more in a county? I don't know. The days and days thing doesn't make any sense to me. But
yeah, get this comment up. Going back to legislators in there, Gerald wants to know, what's a livable wage ballpark in Ohio?
Because they're not full time, because they get to go home and they can do other things, and they're on, they're off, but it's an intermittent kind of thing. I think that I'll have to Google it, but my gut says that a state rep made $70,000-$80,000 a year, somewhere in that arena. I'll double check that while you're talking to them on whatever. Yeah.
And George says California,
yeah.
excuse me, California state legislator salary is $119,702. I think they also get travel expenses and a per diem when they are at the Capitol. For California, though, that's still not. I mean.
Right, they're not getting, even for Ohio, they're not getting rich. Okay, the salary is, Ohio rep is 67.5. So, and they sort of get travel expenses, and what they do is they got like discounts to be able to, or they get money to help them cover the hotel to stay at the State House. So
Okay.
I don't think their per diem does anything except try to cover the cost of being at the Capitol, because you don't get to go home and you have to eat at a restaurant and you have to, all of that kind of stuff.
One story I definitely wanted to cover, I touched on it on the bullet yesterday, and we've talked about it on the bullet several times. I don't know if you and I have talked about it or not, but I think we have. Iowa on the ballot this year had their own version of a Second Amendment, but it was worded such that any challenges to their Second Amendment would have to go under strict scrutiny. That passed last night, and passed convincingly, which is great news for Iowa. When Dan Waz and I were talking about this yesterday, he said it's kind of a sad commentary, because we've got the federal Second Amendment, which you would think would cover all the states.
I kind of disagree, because what I think it is I think that it is different level of coverage, because one of the battles that we're battling all over is states' rights.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to look at this so that if you've got something that mirrors it or that drives it there, that even if they claim states' rights on something, they then are still following that portion. I mean, look at the Roe versus Wade issue. It really is a states' rights issue, not on a national level. But so now there's little laws every that. But it's kind of that piece. So I like the fact that they reaffirm it,
Mm-hmm.
and I like the fact that they tell you where they stand on it. So
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I like the way I want to say it was Iowa Gun Owners, but I don't think that's the right organization. There was a representative that I caught an interview with,
mm-hmm.
and they were saying there is so much pushback on the federal level, especially from the White House, to do away with the Second Amendment. We want something in Iowa that says you cannot do that here.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense, because it's sort of like constitutional carry. I mean, if you end up with 50 states doing that, or 35 states or something, all of a sudden they see that the litmus test for it, and the fact that there's somebody whispering in their ear that all the populace really does want this, they can see that that's not true.
Yeah. Another one that we've been talking about a lot here on the Bullet, and it's still not decided. Let me go to the website. Oregon had measure 114, and it's the national news has called it as it passed. But I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at OPB, Oregon Public Broadcasting, at their website, and as of this is updated every 2 minutes. As of this moment in time, as of 5:17 p.m. Central Time, it's 50.7% yes, 49.4% no, with 75% of precincts reported.
75%.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you sent me the show notes for this about 3 hours ago, I'd looked at it, and it was at 66% data in, and the spread was 0.6%. Now the spread is 0.5%, so 0.5% spread.
Right.
So it's creeping down, and one of the things that you pay attention to on statewide issues is the fact that where are they gathering the data, and where are they gathering the data from? And so the outreaches typically take longer to get in. So as they're gathering, and then they queue up stuff to say this is in, this is in, this is in. So if they're just slowly putting it in, they queue it up, and the stuff that's closest to them comes in first, and then it goes in like rippling rings in water. And so that's where sometimes when you're watching an election and you see it swing wildly to the left, and then you see it swing wildly to the right, it's because the cities were closest to where the data came in, and they got there first, and they were in queue first, and then the more rural locations took longer to get in. So there is a piece of that. So it really depends on where the data has not come from. And right now, we as Ohioans and as South Dakotans, we don't know where they're having a struggle, where their data is not coming in from.
Yeah, and it's 75% reporting, and we're looking at 20 hours after polls closed. So,
right. The races that have not been called, one of them looks like it is headed for going red, Republican, and one is going blue for Democrat in the House seats. So that means that if they haven't been called, they don't have their data either. That means that there's both conservatives and liberals in in that batch that hasn't come in. So there's a lot of watching to see what. That's why sometimes it's really easy for them to call a race. So if let's say in Ohio that when the big cities came in early and they voted for the governor, then it was real easy for them to say, okay, the governor's got it, even if there was only 40% of the votes in, because those would be where the liberal votes were coming from. And if they voted for him, the conservatives sure were going to. And so they use that also in why sometimes they'll call a race really early, or you're going, how can they do that? There's some backdoor thought processes that you need to kind of see.
One more story I want to talk to you about, and this, boy, they've got timing. I'm telling you what, in Columbus, they held a press conference today. Apparently, nobody in Columbus leadership watched Polite Society on Monday night. And
to their detriment.
Yes, absolutely. Looks like today they had a news conference that was streamed live, and they're going after some gun bans in Columbus. They think the judge opened it up so that Ohio's preemption is done. They can pass their own gun control laws on their own.
Well, that's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. That's crazy thoughts. Crazy talk. Dean Reek was like, that's what the lawyer is saying, but the lawyer's wrong. And so that's not what the judge was saying. So this is the lawyer who gets paid by the city, who's extremely liberal, to bring more cases. It doesn't have anything to do with being the city who is going to have to pick up the legal tabs for both the city and the state when they lose, because that is the poison pill that is written in Ohio's preemption law. And so according to Dean Reek from Polite Society on Monday, and Dean is the head of Buckeye Firearms, and Buckeye is an amazing organization in Ohio. He says that he and his group of lawyers have looked at this, and the judge's ruling is primarily about zoning and can you open a gun shop and can you build a manufacturing facility in a community, or can that community stop you?
Yes. And
so,
yeah,
the interesting part is that Cleveland has sued under this preemption about 3 times at a total bill of more than $4 million in legal fees that they have picked up for both them and the state. And they've been handed their hat each and every time.
You would have to wonder, if you lived in Cleveland, if you might want to give your city council member a call, or the mayor's office a call, and say, hey,
enough
knock
already.
This off. You're
I want the $4 million back in my taxes, not
yes.
Right. So I think the other thing to talk about, I mean, we want to talk about that, but the other thing to talk about is that we still don't know yet where the House and the Senate is going to fall. We're sitting here watching.
We know where the House is going to be. We don't know how red it's going to be, but we know it's going to be red.
Well, it's not red yet. So don't.
If the Democrats win every seat that hasn't been declared, they will get the House.
Okay, Colonel Sanders, don't count your chickens. So, but it does look like they will, but it doesn't look like they're going to get a huge majority. So it's going to be a tight house to navigate in from this point. So it's going to be tough, and then it's going to be who wants to be the Speaker of the House, and who really wants to be the Speaker of the House versus who is now going to be pushed into it. Because I've been pushing for Jim Jordan, and I've talked to a lot of people, and they're like, he doesn't want it. So,
and that's honestly, those are the best political leaders, the ones that don't want it. Yes.
So he wants the House Judiciary, and I want him to have that.
Well, again, a leader that is put into a position they don't want is always a great leader. I always wonder about the people that are angling and trying to get the big leadership role. Why do you want that role? Do you understand what's involved, what work is involved there? Because they think they're going to be getting something bigger out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I see that. I agree with you. So I am watching and waiting with bated breath on this Oregon case because I don't think they sold it as a bill of goods that I don't know if based on Bruin they can follow up on. I think that it will then, is if they pass it as Oregon's 114, that there will then be multiple lawsuits on the Bruin case because of the mag bans and mag restrictions,
The
and I don't
ridiculous
know.
licensing restrictions.
Well, they'd gone to the Void card style restrictions for safety reasons, and how is aren't there challenges happening in Chicago, in Illinois, on the Void card issues?
There are.
Are they challenges under Bruin, or are they just challenges?
They're just challenges.
Mm-hmm.
The Bruin, I was hoping would accelerate them, but there are challenges just to be challenges under
Mm-hmm.
the current Illinois system.
Mm-hmm.
SAF had resolved one of them earlier this year when the Illinois State Police, they've got, I want to say it is 60 days from the time they get paperwork to have a card either in your hand or denied. And they were taking up to 9 months, blaming it on COVID, blaming it on this, that, and the other thing. And the SAF sued them and won. Well, no, the SAF sued them. It was clear they were going to win, so the state hired a whole bunch of people to come into that department of the state police to hurry the
Fix it.
process up and then settled.
Fixed it. It's all better now. It's moot. The point is moot.
Yeah. So, but
So
there are other challenges, and Illinois, believe me, the Second Amendment Foundation is not looking away from Illinois now that they got that victory. We're not abandoning you. We're not
mhm,
abandoning you, Illinois.
right.
So
I'll tell
yeah,
you the really interesting thing is when I'm looking at the Associated Press's map of the United States and the House, and even though there are 183 Democratic districts, they are so tiny in geography that the United States looks so red. and
yes.
um and it's just it's an amazing looking map, and it's a sad state of affairs that it is, um that there's so many people that live in such tight spaces that
Well,
their reps cover 5 miles.
remember back to when it was Trump versus Hillary, and we had the individual precinct maps, which precinct went red, which went blue in that election. I remember seeing one of those, and we are a sea of red with little blue dots where there's
Hmm.
cities.
Right, yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's so much stuff that's happening, but in the politics side of it, right now you've got to wait and watch everybody set, because we were in a holding pattern on a lot of cases while everybody ran for office. Well, now they've got to get situated in their office, and then we'll go back to work for 2 years, and then they'll, or a year and a half, and then they'll go back into running for office mode again, and you accomplish nothing. So, so that's kind of where we are.
For some reason, I was getting early in the show. I was getting Facebook comments in my software. I didn't go look because I was getting comments. You
Now
know,
you're not, and now you see
I
them.
went over and looked, and yeah, we've been getting great comments in
Okay,
over
well,
on the
let's roll some
Facebook.
out.
I cannot put them on screen, but
Read
uh,
them.
let me see here. Gerald, every state has its own country, and that should have. Doggone it. That sorry, Go to another one.
I lost it.
Yeah, they're scrolling on me. So Gerald says polls don't matter in Oregon except for timestamp for mail. Yeah, Oregon is a all mail-in voting, and that's worrisome to me. But I don't know how how they secure it. Could it be secured? I guess, but I like going and showing up. I like it if you show up at the polling place.
And I think that's a piece of it. Is I don't think that a lot of people understand that we are these United States, and that is how. It's not a national election. It is a series of tiny elections that are then amalgamated into a larger election, and so especially in this year, because it's not even the presidency, so everything is state bound, and so it's this, every state has their own set of rules for their election, and they're slightly different to the others, and the only thing that we can strive to do is to understand what their state constitution calls for, and to request and require that they follow their state constitution.
Great comment from Michael over on the Facebook side. More than 50% of New York's registered voters did not go and vote. And let's not forget that from the start of the pandemic to 1st of July 2021, more than 360,000 citizens left the Big Apple. Well, let's just hope when they left their politics behind them.
Well, the interesting part is, so a lot of people are now have proven that they can remote work, and they're going to work someplace else. And those numbers are not really going to show up until the next 10-year census. So in 10 years from now, when they do the census, then if New York hasn't grown back, then they will start losing representative seats. And
California did.
Seats. Yeah, as did Ohio. Ohio lost a congressional seat, and we lost it by a head count of 20,000 people. So 20,000 people lost us a seat.
Yeah. And Gerald says SAF needs to come to Oregon. We have lawsuits active all throughout the United States, and if this 114 does actually pass, and I'm not even willing to call it with that narrow of a margin, with still 75% only reporting. If it passes, I'm not one that gets to decide what lawsuits happen, what lawsuits don't, but I would be shocked if within
they don't pile on
a few days we're not, you need to talk to Alan Gottlieb or Adam Kraut to find out.
And they're watching it. They are watching way more than we're watching. That's the crazy part, is I don't know how they can keep track of all the stuff that's going on and how well they do it. I really don't.
Yeah. All right, well, big shock. We went over our time, Amanda.
Only a little. It's just a little.
All right. Folks, I do want to thank you for coming along. Thank you for all the comments. Thanks for watching, and for podcast listeners, thanks for listening. Please remember, everybody, to like and share the feeds. Podcast listeners, tell your friend about the show. And Amanda, on our way out the door, anything you want to plug?
No, not really. Just check in Eye on the Target Radio on on Sunday nights. So that's sorry, I was at the Board of Elections till late last night. So on Sunday nights, we're nationally syndicated and coming to a town near you.
And if you do watch Eye on the Target Radio Live, you might know the video producer. So, yeah, he's a character. He puts up some strange stuff on the screen every once in a while. But anyway, that's going to do it for us today. Please do come join us tomorrow and Friday, 5 p.m. Central Time, the only time zone that matters. That's it for today, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.